Hey, what's up everyone? GameDad here, coming at you guys with part 5 of my current PS1 collection. Now, this is the final part in this video series showcasing that part of my collection, so let's go ahead and see what games are left. Tekken was released by Namco in 1995, and what was pretty unique about this game was its overall 3D environment. It was much more 3D and three-dimensional looking than any other fighting game at the time, and actually allowed you to kind of move around the arena. So it was really cool and had that unique thing going for it. The overall gameplay was actually pretty good too. The North American version, in my opinion, was a lot better though, because it didn't have that slowdown version, or that kind of slowdown to the gameplay that the PAL version had. Tekken III was released by Namco in 1998, and in this game it took a lot of the same from that first Tekken game, but just really improved it. The graphics were much smoother, they didn't look as blocky and as polygonal, but the gameplay is really where it improved. The overall fighting, the techniques, they weren't as chunky feeling on the controller, and everything felt just a lot more fluid, and there was a lot better like collision control with the various techniques against your enemies, and it was overall just a super fun game to play. 10 Pin Alley was released by SCEA in 1996 and is exactly what you would expect from a bowling game. You know, you get to aim, you got your power meter, and then you throw the ball and off you go. Now with this one, what I found is it wasn't very intuitive the way that you use the power meter, and as you can see in this gameplay, I was just not having any luck getting any of the pins to get knocked down, but it was pretty fun to watch the ball shoot straight up into the air and then land on my character's head. It was kind of funny. Test Drive Off-Road was released by Accolade in 1997, and as you can see, I mean, it definitely has PS1 era graphics, and the controls were actually surprisingly pretty nice. I mean, it was a little weird trying to get the steering down in the beginning, but overall, I mean, it played well. The graphics, the models for the different vehicles, they aren't that bad, but I mean, other than a few little elevation changes and bumps, I really didn't get the whole, quote unquote, off-road aspect of this, other than it being, trucks. That doesn't really scream off-road to me, though. Now here we have Test Drive Off-Road 3, released by Infogrames in 1999. Now the models are a little bit smoother on this, but I think compared to Test Drive Off-Road 1, that those just had more detail in their overall skins and textures, where this one, it felt like they went more of just like a colored model route. Now the controls in this one, they were okay. I would say that, again, Test Drive Off-Road 1 was better, but my biggest complaint about this one is everything was just so dark in this game. It was really hard to see what was going on. Now here we have Tiny Toons Adventures Plucky's Big Adventure, released by Conspiracy Entertainment in 2001. And this is a pretty cool little Tiny Toons game. You play obviously as Plucky, and you go around in kind of a side-scrolling yet 3D environment, as you can see in this gameplay footage. Now this game is definitely geared towards much younger of an audience, but I mean, it has its quirks. It looks really good for what it is. I mean, it's definitely got that animated feel to it, and I mean, it was an okay game. It really wasn't bad. Up next is Tomb Raider, released by Core Design in 1996, and this is where it all began. This game was so revolutionary for everything that it had going on. Just its mechanics, what you could actually do, and it really showed off what the PlayStation was capable of. Now, this has not really withstood the test of time very well. As you can see, there's a little bit of slowdown in the gameplay when a lot of stuff starts happening, and the overall character model for Lara Croft is just not good. It is incredibly boxy, and yeah, I mean, overall though, it was a really fun game. Now up next is Tomb Raider 2, also released by Core Design, this time in 1997, and honestly, out of the original trilogy, this one is my favorite. I didn't really play this one on PlayStation when it came out, but I played this on PC a ton, and this whole obstacle course at the Croft Manor, it was so much fun just going through, practicing, learning all the different techniques that she could do, and then if you did it under a certain amount of time, it opened that hidden room inside of the mansion. But man, that was a difficult challenge to actually master back in the day, but tons of fun doing it. Up next is Tomb Raider 3 by Core Design in 1998. Now, I'll admit, I did not actually play this one back in the day whenever it first came out, but playing through a little bit of it, that way I could capture the footage. I mean, it seemed like, your everyday Tomb Raider game, just like the other two, but this one, the lighting was just not very good to me. As you can see in this footage, everything is super dark. I mean, her character model almost looks like it's just a shadow without a skin. But, I mean, it had all of the gameplay controls you would expect and all the maneuvering and everything. I mean, it was solid. It's a Tomb Raider game. Now we have Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation, released by Core Design in 1999. Now, this was the final game that Core Design did, and I think originally it was just supposed to be a trilogy, but then they ended up making this one as well. And by this time, this franchise definitely was experiencing fatigue. I mean, you can see they've had their standard upgrades year over year that you would expect, but there really wasn't anything new that this franchise was offering to the players, not in my opinion anyways. I mean, the original games were awesome, but by this time they should have just stopped while they were ahead. Now here we have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, released by Activision in 1999, and this is one of those games, man, this is like PlayStation at its finest. I can't even tell you how many hours I put into the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. This one was just awesome. It was so revolutionary. And of course, there were other skating games and, bike games and stuff like that. But this is the one that really just took everything to the next level. And this game was just so much fun. Plus, you could play as all of your favorite skaters. I mean, what was better than that? Here is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, released by Activision in 2000, and with this one, they took everything that you knew and loved about the original Tony Hawk game, and they just made it exponentially better. This game has everything you could ever want from a Tony Hawk game, plus everything that you didn't know that you wanted. It has so many more secrets. It has much better character models. The physics have been improved dramatically. It has tons of new tricks. It has new riders, decks, everything that you could want. Plus, it gave you awesome expansions on already existing levels and different parks, which was great. Now, here is the original Twisted Metal, released by SCEA in 1995. Now, this game was another pioneer on the console. It totally took derby, destruction, all that stuff, and just added a totally twisted take on it, pardon that pun, but that's really what the game was. You just had these way over the top characters with these crazy different munitions that they were able to use, and you would just go out and destroy everyone that you could find. Such an awesome game. Now here we have Twisted Metal 2, released by SCEA in 1996, and this is arguably the best one out of the original Twisted Metal games for the PlayStation. The graphics, as you can see, are just immensely improved. They added tons of new power-ups and different things to be able to do. As you can see in this map, it is a much more expanded world, and it's just amazing the level that they went to in this game. Man, if Sony wanted to sell that PS Classic, they should have put this one on there for sure. Now here we have Twisted Metal 3, released by 989 Studios in 1998, and this was actually the first one that I'm aware of that instead of being released by Sony was actually released by a third-party studio. And this one, while I would say that it has better graphics, I would say that the overall gameplay is not as good as Twisted Metal 2. I just wasn't feeling it. I mean, the controls were okay, but they felt a lot more fleshed out in the previous games. I mean, that's not to say that this wasn't a good game. I just prefer Twisted Metal 2 more. Now, next up is Twisted Metal 4, released by SCEA in 1999, and with this one, they must have had feedback from the players, just like I said in the last one. It just wasn't as good as the original ones, so I think Sony just took the reins back from 989 Studios and decided to go through and develop the fourth game themselves. Now, unfortunately, the playback wasn't working correctly on my PS1, so I don't have any footage for it, but it was a pretty fun game. Now here we have Weakest Link by Activision, released in 2001, and this is just the game show, The Weakest Link, in PlayStation form. I mean, it's just like the other kind of game show games like Jeopardy, stuff like that. You go through, you play the game, and I mean, the graphics, they are not good. I mean, considering it's not something the player actually controls, I feel like these kind of games, they could do a lot better job. But, you know, it is what it is. You get a British lady yelling at you when you get things wrong. I mean, that's pretty much it. Just a game show. Lastly is Woodpecker Racing, released by Konami in 2000. Now, this is the final game in my PlayStation Collection videos, and actually, I think it's a pretty good one. This game controls really well. I thought it would be like really loose controls, but they actually have a decent amount of stiffness whenever turning. You don't feel like you're losing control or anything like that. The character models are really nice. You're able to, you know, attack other players on the screen, get a little road rash kind of action going. And overall, this was actually a really fun kart racing game. I was really impressed by this. It's no CTR, but it's still good. So there you have it, everyone. That is everything that is currently in my PS1 collection. Now, if you're coming into this video without seeing the others, there is a card above for you. That way you can go check out those other videos. And if you like this video, please go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons. And also hit that notification bell. That way you get an alert every time I got a new video coming out. Now, as you watched all these videos, was there anything that was missing from my collection that's an absolute must for me to get? Or is there any of the games in my collection that reminded you of a game you played as a kid? Let me know down in the comments below. Now, be sure to check back next week as we start a brand new collection video series showcasing a new piece of my collection. As always, I'm GameDad. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later.